Hi and welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin and I'm a dual UK and US citizen, and today we are talking about 11 movies that have different names in the UK versus the US. So if you're unfamiliar with how film distribution works, it's not entirely uncommon that names will be changed for different markets to help the movie appeal more specifically to the people that they're targeting. For each of the different movie titles that I've picked out, I'll talk about the different names, but we're also going to go into the why. Sometimes the answer is really obvious and it has to do with language differences or existing patents, but sometimes it's a bit more vague and no one has specifically said why it's different. So I'm going to do my best to figure it out and give you confidently incorrect answers, but you can play along and let me know in the comments what you think. First up, we have Zootopia in the UK and Zootopia in the US. This is an animated film worth watching if you haven't seen it. There's no official statement given by Disney as to why the name changed. However, it's pretty certain, and there's a lot of speculation online, that it has to do with various trademarks or potential trademarks that were active in the UK and Europe during the time of release. Disney just preferred to probably sidestep the issue by changing the name to avoid any conflict at all. One of the trademarks were by actual zoos, like a Danish zoo may have had Zootopia as a trademark, again within the UK and Europe, so probably easiest on Disney's perspective to just change the name to Zootopia. Next up is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in the UK and Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the US. These come from the book to keep the movie titles consistent with the books. Philosopher was changed to sorcerer in the US to make it sound more magical and less academic for American children. That is basically the reason that I found, which honestly I love, because it's like, let's not make the American kids think they're gonna have to learn too much or they won't buy the book. But fun fact, there are times in which the phrase Philosopher's Stone is said in the movies out loud by the characters. They filmed both versions. So if you see the American version of the movie, of course the dialogue will be consistent with the film and they'll say Sorcerer's Stone. The actors would have just redone it during the time of filming. And if you see the UK version, you would have no idea that there are a bunch of Americans somewhere watching Harry Potter say sorcerer instead of philosopher. And to further complicate the issue on this one, the Philosopher's Stone is actually an existing mythic substance outside of the Harry Potter series, but American kids have never heard of it, so there wasn't much for them to lose by changing it. Okay, next on our list is Die Hard 4.0 in the UK versus Live Free or Die Hard in the US. This is the fourth installment of the Die Hard series, and the US version of the name is adapted from New Hampshire's state motto, Live Free or Die. This also has an American historic context dating back to colonial times and is an expression that some Americans may have heard, though not necessarily all. Because there's basically a 0% chance that a casual movie theater goer in the UK and elsewhere in the world would understand this reference, it was changed to Die Hard 4.0 because the movie revolves around computers and hacking. Next on our list is a movie called The Perfect Catch in the UK and Fever Pitch in the US. Fever Pitch was a 2005 American adaptation. Is the word adaptation or adaptation? I think this also differs between countries. I've written down adaptation, but it could also be adaptation. Stay tuned. Will I figure that out? It was a 2005 American remake of a 1997 British movie with the same name. And the British version was about soccer, while the American version in 2005 was about baseball, obviously. Thus, The Perfect Catch was used as the name of the movie in the UK to separate it from the 1997 movie, whereas most Americans would have not heard of the British 1997 movie. The next one is Bad Neighbors in the UK versus Neighbors in the US. This is a 2014 movie starring Seth Rogen and Zac Efron. It's called Bad Neighbors in Australia and the UK. If you're British, you're gonna know why. If you're American, you probably don't, but why? There is a popular Australian soap opera called Neighbours that is also popular within the UK. They didn't want UK and Australian audiences to have any confusion. This was not in any way related to that Neighbours. It was an entirely different movie, so Bad Neighbours it became. You can also see on the movie poster in the US, they say family versus frat, whereas you don't see that language on the UK one. That's because a frat is a really American concept relating to Greek life or sororities and fraternities at university in the US and doesn't translate the same in the UK. The next one is Snoopy and Charlie Brown, the Peanuts movie in the UK, and the Peanuts movie in the US. The Peanuts are an iconic set of cartoon characters in the US, and the vast majority of American audiences will 100% understand who and what you mean if you just mention the Peanuts. While Charlie Brown and his friends aren't unheard of in the UK, the cultural relevance isn't the same, and the filmmakers wanted to make sure that British audiences would have more context to understand what characters the movie was about, so they got specific and added Snoopy and Charlie Brown to the title of the film. Number 7, Avengers Assemble in the UK versus The Avengers in the US. This is a popular Marvel movie released in 2012. In the UK, The Avengers was a popular TV show in the 60s, so UK distributors changed it to Avengers Assemble to separate the older TV show with the same name. Next one is The Madness of George III in the UK and The Madness of King George in the US. So, The Madness of King George is a 1994 British film which tells the story of George III's declining mental health and relationship with his son, the Prince of Wales. From my research, the movie appears to be called The Madness of King George in all regions, but it is essentially directly adapted from a play by Alan Bennett, who also helped adapt it to movie form, and the play is called The Madness of George III. The movie production company changed the title for a wider audience, and particularly for an American audience, because they were concerned that Americans would read the George III and think it was a sequel, rather than understanding George III was a person, and also Americans don't have as great of a depth of understanding of historic royal figures, so adding the king in there helped everyone stay on the same page. Next up, A Night on the Town in the UK versus Adventures in Babysitting in the US. This is an interesting one because this 1987 teen comedy film was Adventures in Babysitting in the US, but originally was A Night on the Town in the UK. However, at one point in time, it was then released on VHS in the UK under Adventures in Babysitting, but then it also appeared on TV schedules as A Night on the Town. So if you're British and have ever wondered if this is the same movie or if you're losing your mind, they are the same movie. This is one where no specific reason is specifically given as to why the names are different. Besides, there were potentially TV series in the UK at that time using similar phrasing as Adventures in Babysitting. My personal hypothesis, having lived in both countries, is that in UK culture, A Night on the Town just sounds more like a teen comedy film than Adventures in Babysitting, which sounds a bit too wholesome and like it's for 9-year-old girls to go and watch rather than the intended audience. But again, this is just speculation. There is no official reason given as to why this has been changed. So if you've got information, comment down below and let me know. Number 10 on our list is Harold and Kumar Get the Munchies in the UK versus Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle in the US. This movie features two characters spending much of their time attempting to go to an American fast food chain, White Castle, which has your standard burger and fries and is an iconic American institution in parts of the country. It's well known by name by most Americans. It doesn't exist in the UK, and many Brits would have never heard of it, so the name was changed to give the British audience a better understanding of what the movie was about without relying on American brand names. And last on our list, World Invasion Battle Los Angeles in the UK versus Battle Los Angeles in the US. There isn't a specific reason for this one either as to why the names are different, but the hypothesis is that to an American, Los Angeles is a very important and large city within their own country. So Battle Los Angeles already conveys a pretty big thing happening. To a British audience, Los Angeles is sort of just one of many cities in America and doesn't have the same gravity to it. But if you include a phrase like world invasion, suddenly to this audience, the stakes seem much higher, much more similar to how the stakes would seem to an American audience who simply saw Battle Los Angeles. Now, this hasn't covered all the movies with different names, just a few of them, so feel free to let me know if you know of any others down below. And also look forward to future installments of this series where we're going to cover TV shows and books with different names to see what we can find. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.